Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. I am here from 70 Faces Media and the Nosher, and I'm so excited to welcome everybody to our master Latke class. This is going to be a fun night. I am definitely going to leave here feeling hungry. I bet you will too if you're not cooking along. And so I say, how about we get started? So I'd love to introduce our teacher for this evening, Shannon Sarna. Shannon's a cookbook author and the founding editor of Nosher. I'm so sad that I'm not working with her anymore, but I'm really glad that I get to be with her tonight. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to Shannon. Welcome back to lead this class, and I'll hand it over to you, Shannon.
Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? I'm Shannon Sarna. So nice to see all your faces. Amy, I just want to make sure I'm spotlighted for everyone, right?
I am working on it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Um, I'm also in the middle of quasi-parenting. So if a child walks in or a dog, please forgive me. Hey, Billy, can you do me a favor? Can you tell Clara to go pick up Ella, that she has a headache? Okay. So sorry. I'm also joined tonight in my kitchen by my non-Jewish friend Kelly, who can't cook. So she's going to be a lot of help here tonight. But she signed up for the class and she lives very close to me. So I said, just come to my kitchen and then you'll get to see it firsthand. I really love latkes. I love teaching about latkes. It's such a, oh, there. Hi, there I am. It's a very simple food. It's really a peasant food. And yet there's some really fantastic little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, especially from some chefs, to really make the best possible latkes. All that being said, there are a million ways to make latkes and none of them are wrong. Latkes are really personal, right? They're really nostalgic and they can feel so closely tied to Hanukkah, to our families. So I'm going to show you what I've learned. I'm going to show you the way that I make them. And that's not to say that there aren't wonderful other ways to make them. In fact, Rachel Ringler, who bought me this apron I'm wearing tonight, she wrote a fantastic article on the Nosher a couple years ago talking about combining the texture of potatoes, combining a coarse grate and a fine grate for a very unique kind of latke. And that's another fantastic way to make it. So no matter what way you grew up eating them or making them, there's no wrong way. I'm just going to show you what I've learned, and I hope it will infuse you with some knowledge. Take some of these back to your kitchen over the holiday and see what works for you. Okay, so we're going to make kind of one dish tonight. We're going to make potato latkes with a beet cured gravlax and a horseradish creme fraiche. You don't have to make all of these elements. We'll focus, of course, mostly on the potato latkes, but I wanted to share a couple of sort of easy ways to elevate the potato latke and make it feel a little special and a little fancy. You close the door behind you. My dog just let herself into the kitchen, and then it's, of course, like 20 degrees outside. So we're actually going to start with our beet cured gravlax. First question, of course. The first question of the day is, how do you make latkes gluten-free? Man, I thought we would get like at least 10 minutes into this class before we got this question, but I'm glad we're getting it right in. Thank you, Terry. It is so easy to make latkes gluten-free because the only thing that's not gluten-free in latkes is, of course, really flour, if you're using it, which I am. But the fantastic thing is that there are so many readily available gluten-free flours. Rice flour is a great one. You can find gluten-free matzah meal. You could use that if your tradition is to use matzah meal. Mine's not. It's flour. You could just use cornstarch, potato starch, or you could use a all-purpose gluten-free mix. Personally, I would go with potato starch or rice flour. I think they're better binders. They're going to add good starchiness into that. The starch allows it to get crispier and it holds it together better. We're going to talk about starch a little bit later as we get into the actual latkes. So, but this is one of the easiest dishes to make gluten-free. So hopefully that answers your question. And I promise we're going to get into all of the other frequently asked questions about latkes, like, can you freeze them? How do you reheat them? All that stuff. I promise. We're gonna get there. Everyone be patient. Okay, so we're gonna start with making the gravlax. Gravlax, this is my finished gravlax, but we're gonna make one from scratch. This is a little bit of work for a bigger payoff. And the biggest part of this is really the planning. So you're gonna allow your gravlax to cure for 3 to 4 days. That is the biggest part of it, is thinking about when do you want to serve it and making sure you work backwards, because it's really only about 3 minutes of actual work. So let's start with what is gravlax. Kelly was asking me before, like, what is this word that you're saying? There's all different kinds of cured salmons, right? You can have hot smoked salmon, cold smoked salmon. Gravlax is like a traditional Scandinavian style of curing fish, and we're using salt and sugar to draw out the moisture of the fish, and that's what helps cure it, and that's why you can eat it. Yes, let another dog inside. So I believe you guys should have the recipes in front of you. We're going to start with a cup of just regular granulated sugar and a half a cup of kosher salt. I'm putting it all into a bowl. And then we are going to add, this is optional. You don't have to add the beets. And if you don't like beets, it doesn't impart a very strong beet flavor. Personally, I love beets. I really enjoy them any which way, but I know that people have strong feelings. Do you have to use this much salt? You do. You also don't have to make this. It's not salty. It's like, it's just drawing out the salt. So it's not infusing throughout the salmon. It's not like you're ending up with a very, very salty salmon. You're using it as a way to cure the fish itself. Okay, so I'm mixing this together. Then we're gonna add some lemon zest, and then we're gonna grate up some beets. I was lazy, and I was already at Trader Joe's. So I bought the pre-cooked beets that you can sometimes find in the produce section. You can also use raw beets. Either one will work. I've tested this recipe both ways. So I happen to know that it would work either way. And then I have like some cooked beets left over. If you don't want to have stained fingers, feel free to use gloves for this. But my hands are in desperate need of a manicure anyway, so it doesn't matter for me. If there's other questions as we go, I'm happy to answer. This is kind of a bigger beet, so I'm probably just gonna use one of these guys because my salmon is a little bit on the smaller side as well. And both times that the salmon that I already cured here and the salmon that we're gonna make with today is about 3/4 pounds. You can absolutely double this recipe and make it for a big crowd. It sits, like I said, for about 3 to 4 days, but you don't want to let it sit too much longer than that. This is not the kind of thing that you set it and forget it and it doesn't matter the amount of time that it's going to sit in the fridge. The amount of the time actually does matter because it can sort of over cure and it becomes tough and kind of almost candied, and that's not the texture that you're going to want. You still want to have soft and sort of silky texture to the salmon once it's cut. And if you let it sit for too long, you're not going to be happy. So that's why I say that the biggest lift of this recipe is really the planning to figure out how much time you need and when you want to serve this. So let's say you're making this along with me tonight and you want to serve it for the weekend, right? It's kind of too many days if you're not serving it until Sunday or Saturday. So what you're going to do is actually you're going to remove all of the salt after that 3 to 4 day marker, and then you can slice it up, stick it in a container in the fridge. So you're stopping the curing process, but you can still keep it in the fridge until you're ready to serve it, if that makes sense. So the salmon that we're gonna cut up today, I made that on Friday. I knew I was teaching this class. So Friday, I went out in the morning to Trader Joe's. I got everything I needed. I made it midday and I stuck it in the fridge. Okay, so you can see I'm mixing together our lemon zest, some fresh dill. How much dill? Whatever your heart desires. I love dill. I love beets. I love these flavors. Really sort of speaks to my Ashkenazi heart. The only thing we need to go with this probably is some cold vodka. Did I miss any questions? No. Okay. So I'm going to mix this until it's kind of uniform. And I'm sort of just making a paste that I'm going to spread on top of the salmon. And then we're gonna wrap it up in, I'm wrapping it in press and seal, but you could put it in plastic wrap also. And then I'm gonna stick it in my fridge, and that's it. I'm letting it sit for, you know, those 3 to 4 days. Can you see what I'm doing? Looks kind of like Christmas colors.
What texture are you aiming for?
Great, great question. Kelly's question. Thank you, Kelly. What texture am I looking for? Kind of like kinetic sand. We're looking for a wet sand. So you have natural moisture from the beet and also a little bit from the dill and the lemon zest. And it kind of looks like a wet, clunky sand. Okay. Hi, sweetie. All right. So I'm gonna put aside the one that I already cured over here. I'm putting some press and seal down. I really love this product for stuff like wrapping cookie dough and pie dough, and for something like this, it works really well. So I have this piece, this salmon fillet, and I'm gonna put a layer down of my beet and sugar and salt mixture with the dill. I'm gonna put my salmon right on top. Woo. You can also take the skin off. I'm being lazy. It comes off really easily once you cure it. And then I'm adding this layer of the beet, sugar, salt, lemon zest, all on top. Almost as if, you know, if you were baking a salmon, you were putting flavor all over it, like a pesto or some kind of crust. Very similar process. I'm just laying it down. I'm gonna tilt this so you can see a little bit better. Okay? And then I'm wrapping it up. That's it. That's the whole recipe. That's the hardest part. And then the slicing. But we'll go through that now.
Shannon, we had a great question on here. If you
Yes.
don't use beets, will the mixture have any moisture or need moisture?
It will not need any moisture. It will have a little less moisture, but that's okay. You absolutely can leave the beets out. And there's even a recipe on the Nosher already for just plain gravlax. You can also season it with like some citrus zest. You could use lemon and orange zest. And then as this sits in the fridge downstairs, in my house downstairs, it's gonna draw that moisture out, and you're gonna see liquid is gonna come out. That's perfectly normal, and it's totally fine. In fact, that's what you want. If you see that liquid is pooling at the bottom of the plate, what I do is sometimes I put it in a tray or even on top of like a wire rack, and then I pour off the liquid as it's curing. And as long as I see that liquid, I know it's doing its job. If you see so much liquid and it's like spilling all over the place, it might be time to take it out of the fridge. Okay. Substitution for beets, you can just leave it out. It's really just for the color. It's just kind of like a nice touch. It has a beautiful red layer on top. I'm going to show you what it looks like now. All right. So here is the salmon that I cured starting on Friday, like I said, and you can see you have the pink part of the salmon, and then this gorgeous sort of reddish hue on top. So it has this gorgeous contrast. It's not necessary. You can cure it without the beets. It's just like a little extra something to be schmancy, but it's really nice, and it adds a little something special. So I'm going to cut my salmon as thin as I possibly can, kind of against the grain. And then that's what it looks like. And we're going to top our potato latkes with some of this gravlax just a little bit later. And it's such a nice, to me, it's really my favorite way of serving latkes is with some kind of fish. It cuts the fattiness. It's a nice textural contrast and temperature contrast as well. Same with that horseradish creme fraiche. Okay, I see we have some very specific questions about sodium and water. I can't read the full question right now, so please be patient with me, and I will try to come back to that later. Okay, so this is our gravlax. I'm going to set this aside so we can focus on our latkes. All right, let's talk about the meat. Let's talk about the potatoes. Let's talk about what kind of potatoes we're going to use. So first of all, Really important, we're using russet potatoes. Why? Because they are starchier, which makes a crispier latke that holds together better. The natural starch in russet potatoes is going to produce, to me, what is the ideal latke. Can you use a yellow potato? You absolutely can. You are going to have to do a little extra work to recreate that same starchiness. And like I said at the beginning, there's no wrong way to do this. This is just the way that I learned, and I think is the way that I like it. I grew up making latkes, but I also had a couple opportunities to spend time with chefs in their restaurants and got to learn some of these tricks. So some of the things that I'm going to share with you today are actually things I picked up from chefs that I think have really that really make a difference. Just these small little things. All right, so what I have here is a bowl of cold water and my russet potatoes, some of which I peeled a little bit and some of which I left the peel on completely. If you prefer to peel your potatoes, you absolutely can. There's nothing wrong with eating the skin. I like the texture that it adds. It's complete your preference. Again, one of the chefs I learned from would leave the skin on. Yesterday in the latke class, we left the skin on. I think it makes a great latke. Can you hand grate? Absolutely. Does it make a difference? It is a little bit better. It adds a little bit of something extra to hand grate it. But if you're making large batches of latkes, there is no reason, in my opinion, to hand grate anything. So I'm using a food processor. I'm going to mute while I'm processing, but I want to share one important tip as I'm food processing, which is to alternate using your potato and your onion. The onion is going to help, because we're doing it simultaneously, is going to help prevent oxidation. You know, when the potato starts to kind of turn brown and it kind of has that yucky color all around the edges, it doesn't change the way that it tastes, but it does change the way that it looks. And the way that a food looks impacts how it's and eat it. So I'm always trying to prevent oxidation as much as possible. That's the same reason why I have the potatoes here in a bowl of cold water, because we're preventing oxidation. All right. So I have just a plain onion. My ratio is 4 small to medium russet potatoes to 1 decent sized onion, 2 eggs, a 1/4 cup of flour, and then some salt, pepper, and baking powder. We're gonna use about a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. That's also to add some crispness to it. You could use another kind of onion if you want, whatever you have around or whatever you prefer. I do think onion is an important part of it though. Any questions to see before I start processing? It's okay to use previously frozen salmon. Also, which is preferable? Sure. I can't say for sure. I think it would be fine to use previously frozen salmon. I do think having a salmon with a little bit of sort of fattiness to it is good for the texture and the consistency. I could not possibly say a preference between Pacific or Atlantic. I think it's really what you have available to you or what you prefer. For example, my favorite salmon is to have Scottish salmon when I can find it. So that's what I would buy. But I was on the fly and I literally just bought supermarket salmon. So the onion to potato ratio, absolutely. And again, I hope that you should have the recipes in your email. I assume were sent out. You can also find the ratio for this on the Nosher in multiple forms. 4 medium russet potatoes to 1 onion, 2 eggs, a 1/4 cup of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and then salt and pepper to taste. Yes, I know that the onion was missing in the recipe. I apologize for that.
And heads up, everybody, we did resend out the link today. So if you look in the email that you got probably about an hour before class started today, you have the correct link for the recipe with the onion in it. And when you get your email tomorrow that has the recording in it that you can watch all over again, I will make sure that the recipe is correct in that one as well.
Now I gotta make sure, I gotta figure out why my food processor is not working. Oh my God, tell me that this doesn't work. All right, I might have to bring my food processor over to this, over a second. So sorry. I couldn't find my other extension cord. I'm going to process this for 1 second. If you want to put some other questions, I'll try to answer as I am going, but give me 1 second just to process.
So while Shannon is processing, I'll just remind everybody, add your questions to the chat. Faye, I think you missed this before, but yes, you can sub in the gluten-free flour or the potato starch for the flour. We talked about that earlier. So when you watch the recording again tomorrow, you'll hear Shannon's whole explanation on that part, and keep those questions coming.
Apparently I'm having all kinds of difficulties tonight, so I'm gonna hand grate. After I just said I'm not gonna hand grate anything, we're gonna hand grate and then I can answer questions as we go. Okay, I see, use the gluten-free. Let's talk about a couple of other things while I am hand grating all of these potatoes. Kelly, should I put you to work?
Put me to work.
Oh, well, you can start by maybe like rinsing that out.
Gotcha.
But don't knock over my wire.
I'm not.
Okay.
I got you.
So another frequently asked question about latkes, of course, is what kind of oil you use, right? Can you use olive oil? Can you use avocado oil? My preferred oil for frying latkes and really frying anything is canola or vegetable oil. And that reason is that the smoke point is high, it's cheap, and typically most people are not frying all of the time. Here, Kelly, you can use this. Thank you so much. Good, we're putting you to work tonight after all. You look so nice, you should be the one on camera. I'm the one looking unkempt. Which one do I get? I'm sorry, so good question. Kelly's asking what kind of grate. I'm using the coarse grate. You absolutely can use a finer grate, but I'm not going to, because that's wrong. Yeah, the coarse grate, yes. The fatter ones.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Annie. I appreciate your kind words. I got back from Chicago last night, and someone brought my suitcase upstairs, except that it's not my suitcase, it's my husband's suitcase, because he accidentally took my suitcase, and then someone locked the suitcase. I don't know what the code is. So all of my toiletries and my makeup currently locked in a suitcase I can't get into. So, no makeup. Thank you for telling me I look fabulous anyway. Back to the oil. I like to use canola or vegetable oil. You can use avocado oil. You can also use olive oil. I always say though that why would you use a more expensive oil? You're using a larger quantity of it, and we are going to use a little bit of a larger quantity to fry. So like save the money. You're not frying latkes every day. Most people are not frying latkes every day. So just use the cheaper oil. You're really not doing any damage. But if you want to use avocado oil or olive oil, absolutely, you can do that. Another controversial question around latkes is squeezing out the water. And I know a lot of people believe really strongly that this is the best way to make latkes. It is a very good way to make latkes. It is not my preferred way to make latkes for a couple of reasons. When you squeeze out all of the water, you can also squeeze out all of the starch. And like I said earlier, that potato starch actually adds so much crispiness and binding to the latkes. It helps hold them together and it makes them crispy. So if you squeeze it all out, you might miss some of that starch. That's number one. Number two is I actually prefer the latke to be crispy on the outside and a little creamy on the inside. And I think when you squeeze out all of the liquid, they tend to be a little dry and they can even kind of taste burnt and get too crispy around the edges. If that's the way that you like to do it, you like the way that they taste, you should keep doing it exactly the way. But if you're curious and you want to see if maybe you like them with a little bit of the moisture left inside, I strongly suggest giving it a try and see if you like it. If you use your food processor, do you use the shredding disc to grate the potatoes? Yes, that's how I do it. I know there are people who use the shredding and then also might put it through the food processor, meaning to kind of process it in the bowl of it. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's not the way that I grew up making them. It's not the way that I like them. I like them to have a bit of that texture to them and have those strands, and also just the way that they look with those kind of lacy edges all around. I actually don't want them to look like straight up potatoes or potato pancakes. I want them to have the look of a latke. And to me, the look of a latke has those little jaggedy edges and strands all around. I'm gonna grab Kelly's potatoes because they're not with the onion, they're already starting to oxidize. So I wanna get all of this over here. Kelly thought I was just inviting her to have fun with me. She didn't know I was gonna have to put her to work today. Okay. Talk about making ahead and freezing. Absolutely. I would love to write a dissertation about Jews' obsession with freezing foods and where it comes from. We love to freeze things. How does it freeze? I think I figured out the best way to freeze latkes this weekend. My friend who owns a cafe and I did a little latke pop-up on Saturday, and we tested out making the whole mixture and then freezing them into frozen patties before they were fried. And I actually think this might be the best way of prepping ahead. You still have to fry them, but I cut out so much of the work, and then the day of the actual pop-up, give a round to Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, so much.
You want this other tater?
Sure, thank you. What we did was we made this mixture that we're making right now. This onion. And then we took a baking sheet, laid out parchment, and made little patties. And then another layer of parchment. And we froze them all for a couple of days, and then they went straight into the oil. They came out really amazing. It definitely cut out some of the work. Now, if you're not gonna do that, what are the other ways of prepping ahead? Number one, do not shred your potatoes ahead and leave them in the fridge in water. Don't do that. You can, but they're gonna oxidize and they're gonna turn brown. It is not the way that I prefer, and I think you really have to know what you're doing to do that. You can, however, completely make the latkes and then freeze them once they're completely fried and cooled. You never wanna freeze anything that's still warm or still hot. It's actually not preferable to make them and then put them in the refrigerator. There's something about that process, it makes them a little bit gummy. They don't reheat quite the same way. So my suggestion is, if you want to make latkes ahead of time, to either do that method of freezing and putting them in before you fry them, or completely make them and again freeze them in layers, and then pop them into the oven from directly from the freezer. Don't thaw them. Don't put them in the fridge first. Freezer to fryer or freezer to oven. How to reheat them. We're going to talk about this a little bit more also as we get to actually frying, but I like to put them on a baking sheet with a wire rack on top to reheat. I know sometimes when you're trying to get a lot of latkes reheated, people put them in sort of like those tinfoil baking trays and have them kind of on their side lined up. You can do that, but I think the best way, if you want them to be as crisp as possible, is to put them on a baking sheet with a wire rack on top. This way, air can circulate all around and you get the crispiest possible latkes that you can. All right. Yes, the onion can be grated on the large size. I'm adding now my 2 eggs. I'm adding my 1/4 cup of flour, and I'm gonna start to add my seasoning. Kelly, thank you so much for going underneath that wire. All right, now that my hands are really messy.
What can I do?
Great, you can get a couple other things for me. So I need that sea salt, and then I need, somewhere behind all the chili crisp is baking powder. It's good to have tall friends when you are a midget. Okay, what other questions did I miss in the process of me mixing this all together? At what temp do you reheat? Great question. I like to put them in at 300 degrees. I don't like it to be too hot. Of course, everyone's oven is a little bit different. I also think, let's say you want to make your latkes in the morning. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. You're so helpful. If you make your latkes early in the day, right? You want to be done with frying by the time guests come. Don't refrigerate them. Just leave them out. And when it's time for people to come, you can reheat them on the wire rack the same way. I'll measure because you guys are here. But don't put them into the fridge. I think that's the name of the game. That's the main takeaway. Don't put them in the fridge. All right, so I'm adding the salt, the baking powder, and then some black pepper, and then we're almost ready to fry. If I can make sure I get my extension cord working. Okay, so we have this mixture. Right now, not super watery, right? Not a lot of excess water. water is gonna release for sure. And as it releases, we're gonna mix a little bit of it back in, and we are gonna drain some of it off. And I know some of you might be asking, well, why don't you just drain it now? And it's a great question, because it doesn't work the same way. If you drain off the water from the onion, you don't get the benefit of the onion helping to prevent the oxidation of the potato. If you squeeze out all the liquid from the potato, you're missing out on some of the starchiness, and you might also squeeze out too much. So it's maybe a little extra work, and it might seem clunky, but I'm telling you the result is a really fantastic latke. All right, let's move this over here. See if I can get this working this time. I think this is the extension wire from our sukkah. I can't believe I couldn't get my food processor to work. Let's see if this is gonna work now. Yep, it's my food processor. Okay, so I like to use a pan. It's pretty big, but it also has a little bit of taller sides. You can see it's probably about 2.5 to 3 inches, because that will prevent some of the splattering. Oh, I'm gonna mix it in. Yeah. Somebody asked you mix the seasoning in and you didn't. I'm gonna mix it in 1 minute. I'm just setting it aside while I heat up the oil. This is also a place now where you could add other seasonings to your latkes. I mean, potatoes are such a blank canvas. Yes, I'm putting a significant amount of oil. There's probably about this much of oil in my pan. And I know you're saying, that's a lot of oil. I'm not doing this all the time. It's once a year. And I want to make sure that there's enough oil to get my latkes really frying. All right. Now that my oil is going to heat up, I can finish mixing the rest of my mixture. One of my favorite tricks for heating up oil and how to know when it's ready is using a wooden spoon or any kind of wooden utensil you have around. I'm going to stick it inside. No bubbles yet. I will know when this oil is ready to fry when you start to see bubbles form around the base of a wooden spoon. It looks like I missed a couple of questions. Can you fry in a Dutch oven? I don't see why not. I've never used my Dutch oven in that way, but probably. You can also use a shallow frying pan. This is just preference. I happen to have this one. I typically use it for frying. I also tend, when I'm making latkes, especially for a party, I do 2 frying pans, 1, 2 next to each other. I also know of people who use an electric skillet outside so that their house doesn't get smelling like oil in every corner, or they use their grill to do the frying. Again, my feeling about this is it's once a year. What's the big deal if my house smells like fried potato and oil? It's part of the joy of the holiday, right? If preparing this recipe for someone with a food sensitive to onion, would you just omit onion, or would you substitute any ingredient in particular? I would just omit the onion, absolutely. This is a very forgiving recipe. You're making a potato patty. You can really use any combination of vegetables that you like. I tend to lean towards using potato as sort of the anchor, again, because it has that starchiness. So you could have zucchini in it. You could have sweet potato, carrot. I make beet ones. Also, I know I'm talking a lot about beets, but there's so many different iterations of making latkes. You don't have to use the onion. A traditional potato latke, of course, has potato and onion in it. But of course, if someone has a sensitivity or an allergy, just leave it out, or try some other combination of vegetables for sure. My Uncle David likes to joke that Hanukkah is the one time a year where he eats something green, and that's because he loves to put zucchini in his latkes. The world's your oyster. There's so many different latke combinations. Still confused about water and potatoes. Put the shredded potatoes into water, then drain and put back some of the water. No. Okay, I'm so sorry that was confusing. So over here I had a big bowl that we started with, and I had just the peeled potatoes in the water. That was to prevent the oxidation before I was grating it. All right, so once that they're grated, I have this bowl, right? It hasn't actually released any tremendous amount of liquid yet, but it's going to. And as I'm frying, I'm gonna remove some of it. What some people do, and that's why I'm maybe over-explaining this question, is some people really like just to take just the shredded potatoes, and they take cheesecloth or like a towel, and they wring out all of the moisture. I get it. Years of wisdom of Jewish grandmothers and mothers say, wring out all of the liquid. What I'm saying is that what I've learned is actually keeping some of that liquid in actually yields maybe what I would consider a better latke, meaning it's crispy on the outside, but it's not burnt, it's not too crispy, and it still has creaminess in the inside. What I find when you wring out all of that moisture is that you're ending up with a latke that maybe is a little on the dry side, right? It's not appealing to me. Okay, let's check on our oil. We're getting there, I can see, but we're not quite there yet, but I do see some bubbles in here. Another way that you can test, sorry for the noise. Another way that you can test to see if the oil is ready, of course you can use a thermometer, but how many of us are using a thermometer while we're frying, right? That's literally ridiculous. You can take a little piece of your potato shreds and pop it in the oil and see if it starts buzzing. Oh, we're getting there, but it's not quite there. It needs maybe another minute. My family didn't fry them, rather made them in a pan the same way as pancakes. They're less greasy. So like just a slight little amount of oil. When I make cheese latkes, that's how I make them. You can also deep fry them. I mean, really, there's no wrong ways. You can bake them on a tray by taking a big baking sheet, slicking it with oil, heating it in the oven, right, at like 350 degrees. And then you take it out once the oil is already heated, and then you put the latkes on the tray and you can bake them that way. So there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do that. This is a great question. Why flour versus matzah meal? So matzah meal is how I would make latkes when it's Passover, but flour acts as a better binder. Also, I mean, matzah meal, no offense, it's gross and it's constipating. Like, who wants to eat extra matzah meal in their life? I do not. I don't like the texture and it doesn't bind together as well. So that's why I prefer flour over matzah meal. But again, like I said at the beginning, if it's your family's tradition to make latkes with matzah meal, you should do it the way that you grew up because that taste is going to be special to you, of course. All right, I can hear the oil maybe starting to sizzle a little bit. Yes, so it's going to be hard for you to see the bubbles, but I'm telling you this trick works, and I can see the bubbles are starting to form, which means my oil is about ready to go. Now, this is the point where I'm going to definitely scandalize a couple of people by doing this with my hands. I'm a baker. My hands are made of asbestos. I basically don't feel the heat the same way. You can use a spoon, but if you're going to use a spoon, what I would suggest is as you're picking this up, right, in your spoon, I really want to do it with my hands, is you squeeze just a little bit of that liquid out. Now, I know you're saying, you just told us not to squeeze it out. I know, I did earlier in the process, but now we're at the point where we're almost frying, and if it feels liquidy, that's the point when you want to take some of that liquid out. Okay, so yes, you can do it with a spoon, but I'm not going to because I like to feel the mixture in my hands, and I like to place them in the pan using my hands. One of the reasons why is that I can control the thickness. I don't like to make them too thick and I don't like to make them too thin. I like them to be just right. So that's how I'm making them. I can feel that they're holding together and I'm making kind of a little patty and then I'm just dropping it into the oil. Can you hear it sizzling? Okay. I can also see that my potatoes are starting to release some of their liquid now. See at the bottom? And that is very, very cloudy. That's good. That means it has that starch in there. So as I keep going, I'm going to take some of my mixture. I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that liquid out. Again, making my patties. Now, how do you know when they're ready to flip, right? That's the next question. And I'll scooch the laptop over so you can kind of see. They're going to start to turn a little bit golden brown around the edges. Kelly, you can do that for me if you want also. As they turn a little bit golden brown around the edges, that's when you want to flip them to the other side. When they come out of the oil, I feel like I've said baking sheet with a wire rack on top about 20,000 times. I'm going to put them on a wire rack on top of a baking sheet, not on top of a paper towel. Why? Because I don't want them to have soggy bottoms, right? If you put them on a paper towel, they're going to be soggy on one side of those. Yes, it's going to absorb some of the oil, but if I put them on top of a baking sheet with a wire rack on top, the oil is going to drip down, but they're going to stay crispy all over. Another really important tip for frying latkes is not to overcrowd your pan. When I was teaching, I have my Halloween towel, perfect for this class. when I was teaching latkes yesterday, I turned around and one of the class participants loaded up about 17 latkes in this pan and then was like, oh my gosh, why is it taking so long to cook? That's the reason. You overloaded your pan. You overcrowded your pan. Less is more. They will actually cook faster if you do smaller batches than to try to cram too many in, because the more latkes that you put into the oil, you're going to lower the temperature, so it's going to take longer, and actually you're going to end up with much greasier, oilier latkes because they're sitting in that oil for a lot longer time. If you're frying them in smaller batches, it's going to take less time. They're going to absorb less of that oil. So it's actually what you want. It's a little counterintuitive. I like to use a spatula like this because I can kind of peek underneath and see how it's going. There's also always like hot spots on your, Kelly, are you coming over here to look, or are you coming over here to, no, it's good. It's okay. You can see me, right? You can probably unplug it for now, and if it starts, the battery starts to drain, I'll, have you ever plugged something in before?
No.
Yeah,
No,
all right,
I
great.
don't, I'm not familiar with plugs.
All right, so as these are cooking, I'm kind of putting my spatula underneath and moving them around a little bit. A lot of pans, a lot of ovens, you might have a little hot spot on them, so moving them around will kind of evenly distribute the heat. By the way, the tip about not overcrowding your pan because you're lowering the temperature, so it's going to take longer to cook. Same for your oven. You can't overcrowd your oven and try to put in a brisket and a kugel and a casserole and a roasted potato all at the same time. You're going to reduce the temperature of your oven and nothing's going to cook at the temperature you want. So sometimes less is more when you do that. Top view of the frying pan. Can you kind of see? All right. It's a little hard. So, no, it's okay. We don't need to splatter my laptop with oil. I also had a dream the other day that it died. I know it's on its last leg, but that's all I need. Okay, so I can see, you see it starting to have golden edges, so now I know it's time to flip. Okay, and you see? Nice golden on top. And let's see how this little guy is doing. I do tend to make my latkes a little bit on the smaller side. I think they're more fun that way. I don't want to eat one large Mamaluca latke. I'd rather eat a couple smaller ones. All right, we're doing good over here. So in the meantime, I'm going to take out my baking sheet.
With a white rack on it.
With a wire rag. Yes, Kelly. Oh my gosh. You're halfway to being Jewish now. Okay, I have my baking sheet with my wire rack. I'm going to keep it next to me, so as those latkes are done, I'm going to take them out and put them over here on my wire rack. I'm also going to take out some, all right, please don't make fun of me. No, I got it. Okay? Usually, look, you're short. I did what I had to do to get it. Okay, so I have some salt here, just like some nicer salt. And after it comes out of the oil, I'm gonna salt a little bit on top. Kind of if you've ever seen like French fries being made in a restaurant, they take them and put them in a bowl and they kind of shake them with the seasoning. When they're still hot out of the oil, the seasoning or the salt is gonna cling to it, and it's not gonna make them too salty. It's just gonna bring out the flavor. If you're worried about the salt content, you don't have to do this. But it does just make them just a tiny bit tastier. Brings it out just a little bit. So you can see how these are doing. They're almost done. You probably need another 30 seconds. That was not super long. All right, other questions that I missed? Is it a slightly coarse salt? Yes, that's what I prefer to use. This is a Fleur de Sel. It's not a super thick salt like a Maldon salt, but it is a little bit coarser than like a fine sea salt. You probably will not, it'll be hard to see, but a little bit coarse granules. You could use kosher salt here also. I do tend to bake and cook with sea salt though. Okay. Will they come out just as good if fried in a deep fryer? This is a great question, and I can say with certainty that they will because I just did it this weekend. When we laid them out on the baking sheet and froze them in the pre-fried patties, we put them right into the deep fryer and they turned out pretty good. Now, the dad insisted on wringing out all of the liquid, and so they came out a little too crispy, in my opinion. But you know what? I'm not in the business of arguing with like a 70-year-old Indian man. I love him, and I was gonna let him do whatever he wanted to do. And they turned out pretty good. Everyone was happy. I don't like arguing with older people typically. Okay, look at these. Really nice, perfectly fried. I'm gonna add my little salt on top, and Kelly's gonna get to taste some latkes if she's nice to me. I guess if she does some more dishes, maybe I'll let her. All right. So we have kind of one more thing to make to go along with that. That's of course the horseradish creme fraiche, but I'm gonna get one more batch of these frying while we're still going. Now, I really wanna show you how much liquid has, can you tilt it back just a little bit? I think it'll be easier for them to see. No, I lied, do it the other way. Tilt it forward, okay. I need to do this. That's how much liquid has been released now. So this is the point where I would start to drain off some of that liquid. Some of it I will squeeze off as I'm forming patties in my hand, but I can go over to the sink now and pour some of this liquid off, as long as I'm not pouring all of it off, and as long as I'm not squeezing all of it out. This is also the point where I like to take like a slotted spoon and kind of pick up some of the pieces, the little potato pieces that might have fallen off of the latkes, so they don't burn, because if they burn in that oil, what's going to happen is that the oil is going to taste like burnt potatoes, and that's not a good look, right? We don't really want to have that. It's another.
And we had an oil question. How many
it.
batches before you might change the oil?
That's a really, really good question, and I think it's an important part of this process. Like if you're making just one small, right? If you're just making one small batch of these latkes, you probably won't have to change the oil at all. But if you're double or tripling it, you're probably going to change it a couple of times, or you're at least going to try and clean out the oil as you go. And then also you're going to want to clean out those pieces, like I said, and maybe add some additional oil. So I can't say with 100% like how many latkes before X, but I will say is that you want to watch your oil and kind of clean it as you go, if that makes sense, right? This is another reason why you want to kind of form your patties and not just loosely put them in with a spoon, my recommendation, because if you don't kind of squish them together a little bit, it is very easy for those little stragglers to go off into the oil, and it's harder, the more that you have, obviously, the harder it is for you to kind of clean it out. Sorry, this one was taking a little minute to come together. Okay, so I'm gonna put my mixture off to the side, and while these are frying up, we're gonna clean the oil just a little bit, and then start to make our horseradish creme fraiche. Did you heat the oil on medium? It's really on this. I heated it to start to medium high, and then I turned it down a little bit. It's definitely kind of the thing that you're going to want to play around with. Different burners are, hotter than others. Because this is an electric burner, it does tend to be a little more even than my gas heat. It is a little bit hotter. It heats up a little bit faster. But you're going to want to watch as you go. You might have to lower and raise accordingly as you go. So you have to just watch how fast they're frying, how fast they're browning, and turn it down, turn it up. I'm constantly adjusting as I'm going. How many latkes in the batch? It depends on, of course, how big you make them. If you make them big, then it probably might be, let's say 8 to 10. But I like to make them small. So for this, my batch, I probably could get about 20 out of them, maybe a little bit more. So it really depends on how big that you're making them. All right, these are already starting to turn really nice golden, so I'm turning them over.
Shannon, we had a question about air frying too.
Great question, air frying. So can you air fry latkes? Absolutely. Can you use this recipe to air fry? I don't know, I've never tried it. However, the Nosher has a recipe for air frying latkes. Maybe Amy could even find it and share it in the comments. But if not, Google Nosher air fried latkes. Absolutely, you can air fry latkes. You can also bake your latkes, like I said, on a sheet pan. All of the above works. It's a very forgiving dish. Lots of different ways to make it. Oh, Kelly, coming in with the zinger. I don't know if everybody heard non-Jewish Kelly's question over here, but she said, isn't oil an important part of the holiday? And it is. It's the most important part, which is probably also why I say It's just one day a year you're frying, and enjoy the oil, enjoy the oiliness. But I get it. Lots of different ways to make it. And a lot of people don't want the mess of the oil and the frying, and it takes a little bit of effort. I'm going to make sweet potato latkes. Which type of sweet potato would you recommend? I would probably recommend combining sweet potato with russet potato. So, because the sweet potato is not going to have the same starch like a potato is. So, I would combine it if it was me. If you just want to make straight sweet potato, I would probably buy some potato starch and add it into the mixture to add that extra binding and crispy element to it. But other than that, like, I don't know, sweet potatoes. You could also try like Japanese sweet potatoes. I think those are starchier. It might be fun to play around with that. I can't say for sure, I haven't made those, but I bet they would turn out delicious. Is your mixture still not oxidizing, turning brown at this point because of the onion? It is turning a little bit because I didn't do it in the food processor. So if I had done it in the food processor, it wouldn't be turning at all. But you can see it's not super brown. It doesn't have that like reddish tint, that can happen when it's really, really oxidizing. So
is that why you're covering it in between?
I'm covering it in between, to prevent the oxidation. It's kind of the same way that I would do with an avocado, right? Like, you don't want your avocado to turn brown because then it looks less appetizing. So I use the press and seal because it kind of prevents the air from getting in the same way. Did you add lemon zest and lemon juice to the mixture? Do you prefer zest only? For the gravlax, I only added lemon zest because I didn't want to add even more moisture because I was already adding the beets. You don't want to add lemon juice to, you don't want to add a lot of lemon juice to the gravlax. It's going to cook the salmon, right? If you add, it's like ceviche. So don't add citrus juice, but the zest has all the oil and all the flavor. So you're getting the good part anyway. We're going to make some horseradish creme fraiche now also to go with our potato latkes, and then we're going to plate it all up. Electric skillet temperature for oil. Oh, Jeff, I'm not sure. I couldn't say because I haven't done it. But I know that there are tons of Jewish moms and grandmas who do this. They're the ones who told me this trick. I guess I'm kind of a scrappy person, so it would never even occur to me that I wouldn't want my house to smell like oil, right? Like, wouldn't even occur to me. So, all right. So I'm starting with about a cup of creme fraiche. Now, this is completely optional. Could you serve it with plain creme fraiche? Absolutely. Could you do the same thing with sour cream and add the horseradish into sour cream? Yes, absolutely. We're being a little fancy. We made our own gravlax, right? So why not have some creme fraiche to go with it? I love the tang of the creme fraiche. All right, these are looking good.
Shannon, we have a starch question. Helene wants to know if, as you're going along, do you mix the starch from the bottom of the bowl in as you're going along there?
What a great question. I didn't hear the name of the person who asked that.
I believe it was Helene.
Helene, great question. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think that's kind of one of the most important parts here. And that's why I know there are people who wring out all of the liquid and then just save that starch and mix it back in. The starch is one of the most important parts. So I'm kind of mixing it back in as I'm going, but squeezing out some of the liquid. I know it seems like an imperfect method. Try it, see if you like it. If you hate it, go back to the way that you're doing it, Okay, so creme fraiche, some horseradish. That's not gonna work. Kelly, if you're gonna laugh at me, you can sit outside. Okay, that worked better. Is there a child down here?
Yes.
Which one?
Billy.
I'm adding about a tablespoon here. It's to your taste. Personally, I love horseradish. I am not using the beet horseradish. I wouldn't use the beet horseradish. This is the hot horseradish. There's no amount of horseradish that is enough, in my opinion. It's spicy is the good part, so that's my personal preference. If that is not your jam, that is totally okay. You can leave it out, or you can use the milder horseradish if you like. The reason I love horseradish so much, or one of them, is that my grandmother, who was 101, Grandma Phoebe, was a terrible cook. And at Passover, your grandma was a terrible cook too.
No, I am.
Oh, well, you just don't know how to cook yet. You don't know if you're a bad cooker yet. No. And Passover, she would serve the gefilte fish out of the jar. And I just thought this was the grossest thing. So I would just sit and eat the horseradish on the plate. And I think that's when I started to fall, because I loved it. It was like, oh, a little zing. So I love the horseradish. I don't like jarred gefilte fish. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon zest to this. Billy, did you hear that story? Yeah. All right. So we've got our potato latkes. We've got our horseradish creme fraiche. We've got some fresh dill. We have, can I have that hard-boiled egg? And then where did my gravlax? Did you eat it all already?
I noshed it. It's over here.
Okay. And we've got some of our gravlax. And we're gonna build this little fancy latke. All right. So as I was thinking about the garnishes for this latke, I was thinking a little about shuba. Is anybody familiar with this dish? It's a Russian layered salad, and it's made with potatoes, herring, beets, hard-boiled egg, mayo, and what am I forgetting? Maybe, oh, pickles, like little cornichons all chopped up. Very Russian. So, so, so good. But I thought we had the cured salmon, we have some of the beet, we have the potato element, that I would build it a little bit like a little shuba-ish. So we have our gravlax, we have our horseradish creme fraiche. I'm gonna dollop on top. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm gonna move this over here so you can see what I'm doing. Yes, ma'am.
I'm watching.
You're watching? Okay, you wanna come watch over here?
I'm watching right here.
You're watching right here, okay. I'm gonna do a little sprig of dill. And we're gonna do a little bit of our chopped hard-boiled egg on top. And we have a little bit of a shuba-esque beet, egg, potato, all of the elements. So you don't have to serve it like this, but that was sort of the inspiration for me for this one. Kelly, do you wanna try one?
Absolutely.
I can't believe we did that in an hour. All right, I'm around for more questions, and I'm gonna go back to frying. Billy, what are you doing, my dear? Do you wanna try plain latke?
No.
No?
I only like cheese latkes.
You only like cheese latkes. So my kids love cheese latkes, which was not something that I grew up with, but is actually the most original latke in its form. There's some fantastic articles about this. Leah Koenig has a really great article about it. If you can find it, you can have the slicer in 1 second, my dear. But they're made with farmer's cheese or cottage cheese, and they're like a sweet latke. People also enjoy them for Passover a lot of time. I don't know if any of your families ever had cheese latkes, but when I was introduced to it by my friend Yuval, who lives around the corner, we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Kind of tastes like a blintz, but in a pancake form, and my kids love it. So we make potato latkes, but we also have to make cheese latkes. If you've never had them, highly, highly recommend. So much easier to make than this. There's no grating, there's no oxidation. It's just mixing a nice little cheese pancake and frying it in a pan. All right, let me see some questions. Thank you. Oh, heroic performance. Thank you, Ellen. I can't believe I couldn't get my food processor to work. Oh
The people want a cheese latke class now, apparently.
a cheese
Shannon.
latke class. Well, we definitely have cheese latke recipes on the Nosher. I still say we. I can't help it. It's my baby. In my second cookbook, Modern Jewish Comfort Food, also cheese latkes. You can find the cheese latke recipe also on my Instagram page at Shannon Sarna. It's a very easy recipe. None of this. None of the complication here. How many pounds are 4 to 5 potatoes? I have no idea. I don't know. Probably 1.5 is what I would guess. 1.5, 2 pounds. Let me see if I have any extra potatoes around. Let's weigh them. All right, Kelly, do you want to eat a latke in the meantime? Here you go. Have a latke. Have a latke. Let me move these out of the way.
Delicious.
Take out my food scale. Other questions? Usually make a couple of inches of oil because I'm making falafel and fried bread at the same time as a latke. Is there any negative to that? I'm not Jean. I'm not sure I understand the question. I think using a couple of inches of oil for the latkes is not a bad idea. I think frying too much at the same time, I don't know that I would recommend, but I think using a decent amount of oil is a good way to go. Any lemon zest that you'd add to grated potato mixtures, I think you could absolutely try it. I think you could add some lemon zest and some let's see. All right, one potato, two potatoes. So 2 potatoes is a little over a pound. So 4 to 5 potatoes, probably about 2 pounds, if they're decent size. Hope that answers the question. Sorry, back to Jonathan's question. Lemon zest to the potato mixture, absolutely. I would add some fresh herbs into that too. I would do some dill, some parsley, also maybe some cilantro and some zest. I think that would be a really nice combination. I mean, the truth is that you could add so many different things. This weekend when I was doing this latke pop-up with my friend Sam, their family is Indian, they're from Goa, and we added tons of fresh herbs and different spices. I forget if it was masala mix or just turmeric and coriander, but we did a whole spice mix in the latke itself. It brought so much flavor and color to it. So I always recommend, experimenting and playing around with the flavors that you like. Have you ever used capers? Inside the latkes, no, but on top for a topping, especially with something like this, absolutely. I think capers would go so nice with this. I feel like capers are a little bit of a polarizing ingredient though. They're very salty. They have that brininess to them. I love them, but I think that they could create some opinions. Yes, sorry. Let's see. What other questions? I use capers with caviar and creme fraiche. Yes, that is literally the best combination, right? Every time somebody asks me my favorite way to have latkes, it's always caviar, creme fraiche. I feel like a broken record, but I really do think it's a perfect combination. Happy to stick around for a few more questions if you have it. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for being part of the Nosher community. I hope you learned some stuff tonight. Please reach out, share how it went. As long as you're nice, I hope that your frying goes well. Wishing you very happy Hanukkah. Yes, thank you. No more intense squeezing. I'm relieving you of the squeezing, and I hope that you like the way that it turns out. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks for being here, Shannon. Thank you,
The
everybody,
disc for the food processor. Sorry. I'll show you the disc for the food processor that didn't work. Maybe this is why I can't get it to work. What is wrong with me and food processors? I can't even get it off. I can't even get it off. It's just like
We'll have
it's
to have
this.
Daddy do it.
We might have to have Daddy do it. It's the same like this. It really is very similar. That's what the disc looks like. So I'm sorry. Hope that helps. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Shannon. Thanks, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. And we hope to see you back at a Nosher class again soon. Good night, everybody.